¿Grabas?
Thank you for the previous presentation. A great example of how to combine science with government. Actually, maybe we can talk later about this. My name is Ali Bai. I'm from Azerbaijan. This is that little country over there, bordering Europe and Asia. Russia to the north, Turkey to the west, the old Silk Route. Now, I'm representing the Ministry of Communications and Information Technologies, the Data Processing Center. We are part private, part public. Why that is, I'll get to later. We have and are running the e-government project. We have and are running the e-signature project, as well as a national ISP. So those three things combined is, in our opinion, what is necessary to create and deliver e-government services. Infrastructure, authentication, and the actual services. Well, combination of services offered by different ministries and organizations put into one, using one window principle. Now, okay, before I get to that, I would like to tell a little story. As I found out a couple of weeks ago, citizens of Azerbaijan need a visa to come to Colombia. And it was my first time in Colombia. And when I heard that the government of Colombia invited me here, which I'm also very grateful to be here and get an invitation like that, I started researching, how do I get there? What do I need to get there? I have a passport. So I went on the government websites of Colombia. I started researching on the rules and the requirements. Do I need to go to the embassy, etc., etc., etc. Luckily, there was an online visa application form because there is no embassy of Colombia in my country. So I happily went and filled out the application form. But there was some issues, so I decided maybe I'll try and contact somebody from the ministry. So I continued to look on the website of the MFA of Colombia, and I stumbled upon a Skype user ID. So, being a government employee myself, it was curious for me to find a Skype user ID on a government website, which implies that, in context, please add us and talk to us. So I took upon this invitation. I added the government of Colombia MFA to my Skype account. To my surprise, a female by the name of Anne-Marie answered my request probably 5 minutes after I've added her, and has called me. So it's not me calling her or me chatting with her or the MFA, but them calling and chatting with me. It's hard for me right now to relay my emotions, but it was the most perfect example of customer service experience. Better than even when I call Apple when I have a problem with my iPhone. It was amazing. So she promised to get back to me, and she did. Approximately one day after I received an email stating that, luckily for me, the government of Colombia has passed a law which allows me to come to your country visa-free. So that was a great news for me, and I realized that we're all in the business of digitizing services and making government closer to the citizens. But in any ways, I think this is a great example of how government takes communications and innovations to the new level, making not just their citizens, but also visitors to their country feel welcome and happy. So anyways, let's move on. I'll give a bit of an overview of what my government has done, what my government is doing, what my government will be doing, and answer some of the questions of today's discussions at the end. So here are some of the objectives of e-government in Azerbaijan, and this is to create new legislation. Yes, we create legislation. My ministry does, you would call it research on the market and the citizens' requirements, and submits that to the Cabinet of Ministers, which then creates new laws. based on European laws and based on our recommendations. Beyond that, so we also serve the oldest interest of government, which is the protection of their citizens and state policy. So that is quote-unquote cybersecurity. We deal with that. We provide that. Since our organization does not create the e-services themselves, well, 80% of it, we are also responsible, because we are the front end to the citizens, we are responsible that the information provided by all the other ministries and organizations is accurate and complete. Since every single ministry, like we also heard earlier on by Minister Diego, is trying to create their own e-services and their own kind of services to the citizens, and it creates a mess. So we are there to make sure that there is a completeness to the whole experience for the end user, for the citizen. Right, so these are the directions. The direction is, the main directions, just to summarize, because as Mr. Diego also mentioned earlier, we have time constraints, is to educate and create an IT workforce, because we realize that many different companies in the world have more expertise than others, and they come to different countries, including Colombia, which are less developed, and they offer their services, but once their budget is done, their work is done, they leave. And it is upon us to continue their work, because we are the ones who care about the product, the end product. They only care about getting the work done and getting the money. And that is why without an IT workforce, without education, we cannot do that. We just have a finished end product, and we cannot maintain it, we cannot build upon it, we cannot do any of those things. Beyond that, of course, we have, as you see here, the responsibility to protect personal data and make sure that it's secure. The last point here is the same thing as mentioned. We want to not only create an IT workforce, but also educate our own citizens on how to use different services. My country, as an example, has numerous projects with the South Korean government, because as we all know, South Korea is one of the most developed e-government countries in the world, as well as they have the UNDP office for e-governments located in their country, the center of everything that's related to e-government. So we have a project with them to build education centers to teach government employees who deal with citizens physically how to use a computer, how to use government services, etc., etc. This is a bit of a technical picture of how a government portal looks like. You see that we don't really have the services themselves. We just have a security for our citizens are listed here. So that includes health-related stuff, online applications, licenses, and so on and so forth. We have, my country, approximately 90% of the ones you see here. Beyond citizens, we also want to make sure that businesses profit from government. So we create some of those services, which are also hosted by different ministries, different various ministries, like the tax ministry, customs ministry, etc., etc., etc. We provide them for the businesses. This is just visually how the portal looks like. We call it the info portal. We are trying to live up to Government 1.0 and Government 2.0 standards, which basically state that we want to provide static policy information as well as interactive services, which are offered by all the ministries. We also have a very active social networking model here. Some of the very popular services, this list is a bit outdated. We have another very, very popular service, which we've also taken from the South Korean government, and that is very interesting. It's called the electronic reference sheet. All of us have mortgages or car loans or bank loans, and in order to get them, we have to go to the bank, and the bank then tells us that we need so and so amount of different documents to bring to them so that they can be sure that we pay back the loan. So then, if I want to buy an apartment or a house, I have to run to different ministries and get documents X and Y and Z. So this electronic reference sheet combines all the information that certain organizations like banks need onto one paper, which I can print at my house and bring to the bank. Saves me days, and not even, if not weeks. Here's a list of all the government organizations currently connected, and this is most of them. A very important part of e-government, I think, is not just to provide services by other ministries, but also to allow dialogue. What is dialogue? I mean, every single ministry has visiting hours. So if I am Ali and I have some issue with the police, I would like to go and talk to the Minister of Interior. I don't want to talk to some person that works there. I want to talk to the minister or the deputy minister. I can do that. I can go and I can write an application that I want to talk with him, and I can visit him at certain hours. But I have a job, and my boss doesn't like when I'm not there. So instead of going there, I'll write a letter in the e-government portal, which gets directed directly to the person I want the letter to be had. Very handy for complaints. Okay, so this is actually very important. This gives credibility to e-government. And these are the methods of access, the authentication methods. These are pretty standard for most countries of the world, except one. Let's go through all of them. There's digital signature. We have them on smart card. Regularly secure username and password. And access on the mobile phone, so you can have access to the portal using a certificate issued by the National Certificate Authority, which is also us. And you can access the portal with a QR code. So that is actually very, very new and very interesting. It's double secure, so you access the portal on your computer, but you need a mobile phone with a certificate to do so. Here's some information on the open PKI infrastructure in Azerbaijan, which is run by the Data Processing Center to allow for digital signature. Currently, there's numerous projects to allow certain transactions which are supposed to be very, very secure. For example, signing bank loans, bank documents, signing car insurance loans, etc., everything online, to avoid going to the organization, the bank, the place of service, of business to do it. This is important. Why is this important? If I am a regular guy and I live in the capital city, I don't really need those things because A, the bank is right downstairs. B, I can buy a car probably 10 minutes away from my house. But for rural areas, they don't have access to these kind of services immediately. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to increase you call that penetration. We want to increase the penetration of e-government services. In order to do that, we have to understand what every single citizen goes through throughout his life, what kind of problems he has, and we try to help in the process. Yeah. So, I'd like to ask a question. Couple of weeks ago, I was invited to participate in we'll leave that for now, in a e-government forum in South Korea, and director of the e-government in South Korea said, Ali, I think it's time, not just for your country, but for everybody who tries to do anything meaningful with e-government, to move from their current standards into something new. What does he mean? Currently, what we try to do is we try to digitize physical services, make them online, make the lives of our people easier. But what he means is, he means government 3.0. And I have that on that slide, I'll get to it later. Government 3.0 is actually a GDP enhancing model. it allows small to medium-sized businesses to make money on government services. And that is good for everybody. I'll give you an example. For example, the Ministry of Transportation in South Korea, and most of our countries, some not as advanced as others, I understand, but the Ministry of Communications of Transportation in South Korea has tons of raw data in terms of transportation. So let's say, for example, what time does bus A arrive to station A? This types of data is millions rows of data. And some governments just collect this data and use that data for their own purposes. For example, in bus stops to give information to citizens in terms of when the next bus will arrive. So Government 3.0 is opening this data, providing this data as APIs to businesses, to developers, and allowing them to build applications with it, which then they can sell. Now, you might ask yourself, why would somebody buy something that's already free? It's all packaging. A great example would be free applications on the iTunes Store. I love to download free applications from the iTunes Store. I love it. But I also realize that the paid applications are of better quality, have a better interface, most of them, and provide better value to me than if they will be for free. So this is a model that's used in the Government 3.0 model. We want to give businesses, small businesses, the opportunity to create income, create jobs, etc. Can I move on with the slides? This is very technical information on the PKI model in Azerbaijan. Not working. Let's look at this picture. What you see here is an iPhone. I mean, 80% of people in this building have an iPhone. How come this phone is making so much money for Apple? How come this phone is making Apple one of the most valuable companies of the world? It's using and combining technologies which are government funded. Let's look at GPS. GPS is a NAFTA program by the US military from 40, 50 years ago. Internet, DARPA, 50 years ago. So there's a pattern here, and the rest is the same. There's a pattern here that tells us that when government does its main duty, which is to protect us, so the reason why the US, for example, would invest into these kind of technologies 50 years ago is to protect, to defend its citizens. So these kind of platforms and technologies which were created and invested in for the purpose of protecting its citizens are opened and used later to give businesses the opportunity to create something like this, is my opinion. Now, Henry Cheeseborough is the inventor of open innovation. He invented that phrase. When somebody asks what is open innovation, the answer is written right there. It's a use of purposive inflows and outflows of knowledge to accelerate internal innovation and expand the markets for external use of innovation. So basically, this contradicts. So this contradicts the closed philosophy of some, for example, Apple, in which they say that whatever we create is ours. You cannot change it. You cannot do anything to it because we don't want it. But what he says is growth and innovation should be open to allow others except you to use it, to expand on it, and allow yourself to use and expand on others' innovation. And a great example is, for example, big companies have big R&D departments in which they create new technologies and file for new patents. But not all of these companies use all their patents and all of their technology they have created, so it's just lying somewhere on the shelf, and nobody else can use it because it's patented. What he's saying is, open it up, let everybody use it, and make it open. I think this is the end of it. What I like to say is that it's been an honor to stand here and talk with you and share my ideas. I hope to be back. I hope some of you come to visit me in my country. Until then, goodbye.